Welcome to the Land Investing Business Secret Podcast, where each short episode we talk about the strategies, experiences, and the tools to help you launch, grow, and scale your land business. Learn how to find freedom within your own business, find out ways to build consistency in your processes, and hear how other everyday land investors are winning so you can get to the next step closer to building your dream life through your land business. And I'm your host of the Land Investing Business Secrets Podcast by Pebble, Jesse Kwong. Hey, how's it going? This is Jesse here from the Land Investing Business Secrets Podcast. I've got a special guest here. His name is Brandon Bateman. We're going to be talking about a topic that we don't hear too much about, and that is to do with PPC or paid traffic or ads. And Brandon has a wealth of knowledge in that area. That's where he specializes in, specifically with real estate investors. There's going to be a ton in this episode here. There's going to be numbers thrown here, details thrown here. I tried to get him to explain as much as possible, coming from a place of not knowing much about this stuff, because a lot of us don't spend our time in the world of PPC. So I hope you guys find this episode helpful. If you do enjoy this episode here, it's something that we don't talk a lot about. Leave it in the comments on YouTube or in a review and let me know, or comment. I think how you can do it on Spotify. Let me know this is something that was interesting. I'd love to bring somebody else on or bring him back on to talk a little bit more. Let me know your feedback. Listen, I don't get any. There's not a lot of comments. So if you left me a comment, I'd probably see it. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this episode here with Brandon. Cheers. All right. We've got a very special and actually kind of a different guest come on to this show here today. Brandon comes from the world, really from the digital marketing world, I'd say. Everything to do with PPC, SEO, and all that kind of good stuff. And so, Brandon, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing fantastic, Jesse. Thank you for having me. It's awesome to meet you and to be here to share some of the little bit that I know. Let's focus on that.
I know, and I know you're sort of specifically in the realm of real estate investing, but Brandon, again, I kind of gave a quick summary. How did you end up doing what you're currently doing right now, and walk us through that, and what are you doing currently right now?
Yeah, good question. So I'll give you the quick background. So I started off as actually when I was in school. That was when I started this business. I was a sophomore in college. And at the beginning, it was just a digital marketing business. So we worked with like whatever local company wanted digital marketing services. And that's kind of where I cut my teeth on learning about like PPC and Facebook ads and SEO and stuff like that. It was a few years after that we started focusing just on the real estate niche because we found a lot of traction there. And it's really last year or so that we started focusing, in addition to the house seller lead gen or like residential seller lead gen side, also on raw land seller lead generation. So that's kind of like the slow, the slow journey. We got like really tight and then went out a little bit. So at this point, like probably more of our clients than not are people who are actually like flipping houses, wholesaling houses. And we have this growing segment of clients where we're probably working with 20, 30 companies right now that are just looking for land. And because I know that's more so your specialty, and as I'm sure you know, sort of a growing spot within the real estate space. So that's been that's the short version of the journey.
Awesome. Well, I want to make sure everybody understands, what does PPC stand for, and what is that?
Yeah, PPC stands for pay per click. So when people talk about PPC, they're often like the number one thing that they're talking about is usually something also called like paid search marketing. And more commonly than not, it's on Google. So if you look at, if you were just to type into Google right now, like sell my land fast or whatever it is that you want to type in there, what you're probably going to see is 4 spots at the top of the search results that have this little ad symbol next to them. Those are what we call pay-per-click ads. And then you're also going to see all these organic listings below that. Those are what we call organic results, right? So if somebody searches on Google, Google kind of has 2 purposes. First purpose, when somebody searches for something, we give them the most relevant and authoritative result for what they searched. Second purpose, we want to make money. right? So that's kind of how Google works, right? All those listings sort of closer to the bottom of the page, those are all Google organically doing what it is supposed to do. But then those listings at the top, those are paid listings. And pay-per-click marketing is how you get there. The reason it's called pay-per-click marketing is because if you just search that and you see those ads, those people didn't actually pay any money for you to see their ad there. If you were to click on one of those ads, that's when that advertiser would be charged for the click a certain amount of money. Uh, Hence, they call it pay-per-click marketing.
And so you mentioned Google.
Mhm.
There's another big platform called Facebook. Why are we focused on Google over Facebook, or are you focused on both?
So as a company, we do both. What we've found is that we've had a hard time getting what I consider great results for our land investing clients on Facebook. For houses, Facebook is okay. Although I would say for both, Google tends to be a little bit more popular than Facebook. And there's a few reasons why. The main reason is the type of lead that you get from Google is way, way different from the type of lead that you get from Facebook. You could generally split marketing into two different categories. You could say there's interruption style marketing, which is really most marketing. This is like on Facebook, I was just scrolling through the feed. I was looking to see what my friends and family are up to. And then bam, there you are with your ad asking if I want to sell my land. I wasn't looking for that. Now that I see that, yeah, maybe I'll reach out to you, but I wasn't looking for that. Or like direct mail, for example, is going to be interruption marketing. I was going to my mailbox looking for my bills or whatever I was looking for. And then here's this mail that I didn't necessarily want, but now that it's here, I'm going to see it. And then the other side of that is more this inbound style of marketing, where on Google, I'm actively looking for a way to sell things. So you have to ask yourself the question, under what circumstance does somebody go to Google, search for a way to sell their land, click on one of the results, view the website, and then fill out their form requesting an offer? And I can tell you the circumstance that you're thinking of probably doesn't include a person who doesn't have land to sell or doesn't have any interest in selling their land, right? Because most of the time when you're contacting people, you're kind of hoping the time is right, but you don't know. Versus with pay-per-click marketing, you know the time is right because they came to you. It wasn't you that went to them. So that's the reason that I think people generally favor Google as a channel over Facebook, is because the lead quality is better. And not just is it better, there's arguably no better lead quality that you can find from a seller motivation standpoint. Now, there could be other problems with those leads. Like, for example, from a land investing standpoint, especially, maybe that land that comes across from that person, maybe it's not the number of acres that you like to buy. Maybe it's not in the exact location that you like to buy. Like those things, lead quality from like the type of property standpoint tend to be more flexible and more likely to not hit your buy box with PPC. But from the standpoint of, is this a motivated seller that wants to talk to me about selling their land? You probably can't find any other channel that performs on this level.
Got you. So you're telling me the big difference here again between Facebook and Google is that Facebook is more interruptive, and something like Google, there's a little bit more intent with the kind of leads that come through. So your lead quality is quite different between the two, and it sounds like there tends to be a better quality of, let's just say, seller leads for now coming from the side of Google. Is that correct?
Yeah, 100%. The word that you said, intent, is that hits the nail right on the head, because intent is the best possible way that you could target. Like, for example, if I am Google and I see that you just searched for flights to Tampa, Florida, what's the likelihood that you're going to fly to Tampa, Florida soon? It's pretty high, right? Because you basically put your intent right into the search engine. And in most places you can't target by that kind of data, but on Google you can. And that's the core difference.
So in that case, since there is intent, the overall, does it cost more to say run an ad or get leads on something like Google versus something like Facebook?
What we found when we were trying to invest or I'm sorry, market for land investing, was Facebook was actually a little bit more expensive. And now on the house flipping side, usually Facebook's going to be a little bit cheaper and also a lower quality lead. So it's a trade off. That's why on the land investing side, we didn't find it quite as favorable. There are some some caveats to that. Maybe somebody who's listening to this doing Facebook advertising is like, that's not true at all. The reason there's some caveats is because on Facebook, there's, and this is true for Google too, I suppose, there's a massive range in the quality of lead you could generate based on the tactics you use. So for example, if I wanted in land investing to get a cost per lead of $10 on Facebook, I probably could, but I would then be driving the lead quality really far down. Um, so what we found is when we're pushing Facebook to try to get the lead quality that we're looking for, we found that it gets really, really expensive. And with Facebook, you can find that you can probably drive leads cheap, but they're not very good.
Curious, why are house investors able to find leads on Facebook versus land
Yeah, I well, first of all, to be clear about one thing, like our when we did do some Facebook marketing and land, our clients did get deals. So it does work. Most marketing channels you find work eventually. It's just, are they better or worse than other channels? That's the thing. So we found it was just, for what you get, a little bit expensive. But why would it be different for houses than for land? It's a really curious question. What we found, I can tell you where it broke down in the funnel, was conversion rate. Like, we were getting plenty of clicks on the ads, and then people just weren't filling out forms quite as much as they did. Well, in Google, you normally expect way higher conversion rates, so that's an obvious comparison. But even like looking at land investing versus house investing on Facebook, we found less people converting. It could be some lack of ability to target super well that was causing that. Um, it's a little bit hard because the targeting options for land are sort of limited. So it's kind of like
That's
you're
right.
putting.
I always wonder, how is that even possible to target for landowners? Now with houses, I get it. I mean, there's a lot more ways you can probably target a house owner, um, you know, versus a yeah. I just wouldn't know how you'd be able to do that. But okay, that's
Mhm.
super interesting between the two, and I may come back to touching upon the two there, but I don't want to spend too much time there because you're telling us Google is the place to be now. um, I've got another question here for you, but before that, who should be, considering running uh, PPC through Google? Do we have to be at a certain size? Can we make this our primary way of lead generation? Like, where does, like, PPC doesn't get talked a lot about? It's typically, we hear mailing or cold calling, or some people may be dabbling in texting and RVMs. Um, those are more of a
Mhm.
traditional ways. When does PPC come in specifically for land? When should we start thinking about that?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question, and there are definitely some things to think about there. And you're 100% right that it seems like direct mail mostly has a hold on the market when it comes to land. I know there's some people cold calling too. It seems to not be quite as popular as direct mail. If you think about it, that's actually very, if you know the house flipping and wholesaling industry, that's actually very representative of what that industry looked like many years ago. And then what happened is those channels became very, very expensive, and seller behavior changed to where now they're more likely to find the companies they do business with online versus versus through direct mail, as an example. Across all these industries, the number of people searching online for these solutions is going up because this older demographic that we're mostly speaking to is becoming more savvy and using search engines more, and that type of thing. So the main reason would be diversification, but there are some reasons. Like, if we're looking at, say, direct mail as a channel, could you send 10 mailers? You might not get anything, but yes, you could. That might not be so true with PPC. It might be a little bit more of an aggressive startup cost, and you have to be more consistent with it to get whatever you're going to get. So, what a lot of people find with PPC is it's not the best channel when you're just getting started. Once you have some traction, some diversification in channels could be a really good thing. So that's why I would definitely look into it. But there's still some things where, depending on what your business looks like, it could be a fit for you or it could not. The main thing that we found in the land investing space that's different is, when you're doing direct mail or cold calling, you're targeting properties. When you're doing PPC, you're targeting people. And targeting people instead of properties brings up some big differences. Like one of them would be, for example, location. if I am targeting, let's just say I want properties in Texas, and I target Texas on my ads, what's going to happen is Google's only going to make my ad eligible to show when somebody is searching from within the state boundaries of Texas based on their IP address or their Google Maps location, or, whatever, all that data that Google has to know where this person is. So if I'm that person and I'm searching for a way to sell my land, and then I find your website, could my land be outside of Texas? It absolutely could be, right? That's normal for landowners. Could it also be inside of Texas? Yes, right. So is it maybe more likely to be within Texas than it is to be outside of Texas? Probably, but it's not a 100% one for one. Like you're always going to get that land in Texas. Versus if I'm doing direct mail, as an example, then I'm probably targeting owners of land from Texas if Texas is my geographic location where I want to target the land. And then there's the same thing is true for all the other factors that you can think of. Like there could be acreage, right? Nobody says like types into Google like sell my land that is 5+ acres, right? Nobody says that, right? They could be searching and you don't know if their land is a 1/4 acre or 100 acres. And there are some things you could do, like for example, say in the ad, because it's only pay-per-click marketing, so you don't pay unless they actually click on it. You could say 5+ acre properties only, as an example. And there's some other things that you can do to kind of dial in for the type of lead that you're looking for. But what I'm getting to is this: if you have a very specific buy box as a land investor, it might not be the channel for you. And the reason being, it could be that 1 in 100 of your leads actually fits your buy box, and maybe all 100 of the leads are really motivated sellers that want to sell their land. But if it's not in your buy box, who cares? Versus our clients that we've done well with, they're not 100% flexible. Like we do work with some clients who need land just in certain places, or have like the 5-acre minimum, or it's got to be it has to have road access, can't be swampland. Like it's normal to have some criteria, but if your criteria are a little bit looser, it tends to work a little bit better, because at the end of the day, you're going to be getting a lot of motivated sellers through, and the greater percentage of those motivated sellers that you can help, the better it will work.
Gotcha. That makes sense. So just to sort of reiterate that, having looser criteria, I mean, you're allowing to sort of spread your net a little bit wider, especially with the different ways that you can target, I guess, leads. Again, you're targeting people, not properties. So location of people was what you were referring to, correct?
That's right, and that's an example, right? But it's still true for everything else, right? Like there's no filter on Google for like the person has to own a 5+ acre property. We could know that they're searching for a way to sell their land right now, and that they're searching from a certain location. But that's generally what the targeting somewhat looks like. And I'm oversimplifying it, because the reality is we do have a system where our clients report to us which leads were valuable and which ones weren't. And then we hone in the targeting on the most valuable ones over time. So usually you start with a lower opportunity rate, and then it gets dialed in and it gets better over time. Um, but there still is like, if your goal is I need specific types of lots that I could sell to these kinds of builders after the entitlement process, I'm only looking to buy 2, and these are my 100 lots that I'm looking to potentially acquiring right now. That's not a PPC strategy that's going to help you do that. That's more of a direct outbound strategy or direct mail. Versus with PPC, you could say it's less targeted, but you could also say it's more targeted. The reality is it's more targeted from a seller motivation standpoint. They're going to be spending your time talking to people who actually want to sell their land. It's less targeted from the type of property standpoint, where you can't guarantee that the leads you get are going to match certain criteria. And most of our clients do have some criteria, so they end up like either giving some of their leads to other people or just throwing them in the trash can, basically. And it's actually not uncommon. We have many land clients that throw away 2/3 of their leads and still get a killer return on investment on all the marketing based on the 1/3 that are left. But yeah, if you're like, that's if you want 30% of your leads, but if you only want 1% of them, then you're going to have a kind of hard time.
Right, right. So, speaking about leads and spending on for those leads, what should somebody expect to spend on a? I don't know how you guys categorize it, whether it's on a daily or a monthly. What is a reasonable amount? And then we can sort of talk about what are you seeing sort of on sort of an average cost per lead, let's say for
Yeah.
now. But yeah, so what should somebody expect to be spending per month? And yeah, let's start with that.
Yeah, good question. So there's going to be multiple expenses usually. So I want to be clear about these things because a lot of things when I talk like cost per lead, I'm talking about one of the expenses, not the other one. So you're going to have an expense for your ad spend. Let's just say we're comparing this to direct mail. This is like the cost for your data and for the postcards you're sending, etc. Right? There's also the cost of how are you going to get this done, which in the case of direct mail might be like how many hours of your time does this take, or how many hours of the person on your team that you pay to do it, or you're outsourcing it to another company and how much are you paying them, or whatever the case is, right? So those are kind of the two things required for any marketing channel. You have the actual capital that's working in the channel, and then you have the overseeing of that, which also costs either money or focus or something. So if we look at from like an ad spend standpoint, what do you need? The minimum we draw, which it is our minimum as a company that we'll take if you're a client of ours, but it is that way for a reason, because I think if you're lower than this, you probably shouldn't be doing it. That's $2,000 a month. That said, it's common that our clients start anywhere from $2,000 to $10,000 a month starting out. So it's and we have clients into the tens of thousands in land and in houses into the hundreds of thousands, right? So it depends. There's a few reasons, and some of them are more valid than others. So the answer that you're not looking for to your question is that you can technically, but I'll talk about like under what circumstances you can. So the first thing that you want to think about is it's going to take a certain amount of effort to get this channel stood up and maintained. So in that amount of effort, if you're at $2,000 a month in ad spend or you're at $500 a month in ad spend, is going to be kind of similar. So sometimes you need a little bit more budget to make the juice worth the squeeze, if that makes sense. And juice worth the squeeze, if it's your time, means like to justify your time. If you're paying a management cost, let's just say you're paying someone $1,250 to manage it, which would be like our starting management cost at that $2,000 budget. And you're only spending $500 on the ad spend. Now you need your $500 to work a miracle to like actually justify the expense that you have from an overhead standpoint to run the channel. So that's the first reason. Now, let's just say you didn't have that overhead expense and you could do it yourself and you're some genius that it's really easy. It doesn't take a lot of focus to do it yourself, something like that. So let's just say that hypothetical situation were true. Could you spend $500 a month? You could. What you'd find is probably pretty inconsistent results, and a lot of people just aren't getting the level of volume required at that level to really justify the expense. Now, if you looked at that after 2 years, you look back at the return on investment and saw was it a good return on investment or not, I bet you'd find that it's good. We don't see that there's a strong correlation between amount of money spent and return on investment, but it would be very inconsistent on the way there.
All right. I hope you're enjoying this episode here so far with Brandon. Brandon and his service, yes, he does provide a service. It's just another way of leveraging and making sure you use your time wisely, and that you're not spread thin doing everything, including maybe even experimenting with PPC. I know personally how much time that can take up. And so time as a founder, as an entrepreneur, is so important. And that's exactly why I run something called the Dirt Hacker Challenge. It's a 3-day workshop with me. We go through the frameworks on building a business system that'll actually allow you to scale up a business. It's what I call the hack framework. I do go through that with you across 3 days. Talk about things like getting processes in place to automations to when now we touch upon AI, all those things that are covered specifically in the lens of a land investor. So if you're interested in joining me for the next upcoming Dirt Hacker Challenge, it's completely free. Head over to dirthackerchallenge.com. There's a bunch of bonuses that I'll send you when you sign up for that as well. I'll just pay the shipping and I'll get that stuff out to you. But head over to dirthackerchallenge.com. I'll see you on the next upcoming challenge. Again, all on getting the processes and systems in place so you can actually build a sustainable business and then eventually buy back your own time and scale up your land investing business. dirthackerchallenge.com. I'll see you there. Enjoy the rest of this episode here with Brandon. Got you. Okay. In so let's say there is a minimum spend of a couple grand a month. What are we looking at on average that costed us per lead? And I don't even know if you can even go as specific as average cost per deal.
Yeah, I mean, we absolutely can. So on a per lead level, let's start. It's going to depend on a few factors. So I'll explain a couple of those factors. The first one, and probably the biggest one, is the locations that you're targeting greatly affect your cost per lead. If you were to open it up to say, I just want land anywhere, it would be a lot cheaper per lead versus if you just really must have land in Spokane, Washington, then you're looking at a higher cost per lead, right? So if we're talking about an opened up campaign, that's where we're looking at maybe $30 per lead. If you're mostly looking from the standpoint of like, I'm doing virtual acquisitions, my process for finding buyers could work anywhere, I could open it up to the United States. That's about what we're seeing there. But then as you narrow it up, getting into the several $100 per lead range is not unusual. Um, it's hard to say exactly where for an exact market because it just like every little thing depends. And it could be like even just looking at the same market, you could say like Atlanta, if you targeted it by like 3 counties versus if you targeted it by a 100-mile radius would be a really different cost per lead, right? So those things are things that matter. Cost per deal, it does vary a little bit because it's, as you can imagine, based on cost per lead. There's sort of this moving per deal target based on your lead conversion, and the conversion numbers do depend on at what rate you qualify the leads. 20 or 30 leads to a contract is fairly normal. So you can use some math there and say like, if you're really wide, to get $1,000 per contract wouldn't be crazy. Although we certainly have clients in that $3,000 to $5,000 cost per contract, which isn't unusual too. A lot of it just has to be justified by what you're looking at for your specific deal spread. So what we would generally do, like let's just say somebody wanted to do this with us, they'd reach out to us, and what we could help them map out is we would reverse engineer this. So we'd say, well, we make this much money per deal. So based on other benchmarks from our other clients, how many leads are we going to need to get to those deals? And based on that, what kind of cost per lead would we need? And then how many leads per month would we need, et cetera? So we can kind of reverse engineer what that funnel looks like. And those are the targets that my team would aim towards. Because the like cost per lead varies, cost per deal varies. The most consistent thing actually is probably return on investment, where usually around a 5x return on investment is where people's goals are. And of course, we have clients in the double digits for returns there, and then you could see like a 3x. A lot of it depends on your acquisition skills. Although we are seeing higher return on investment numbers in land than in houses because it's so uncompetitive right now. But at
Can
the
you
same time, we
explain
do
to
have
the
a
listener here, or,
yeah,
what does it mean by a return on investment? You say five times return on investment in regards to,
yeah.
PPC. What does that mean in if you have to explain it to me as if I'm a 5-year-old, which I am sometimes, but you do
Yeah,
explain that to us.
yeah. I would say it is your revenue divided by your ad spend. So that's where, like, let's just say you're spending $10,000 per month on this marketing channel to be bringing in $50,000 per month in revenue in the business. A lot of people would say that's a good return on investment, where then you pay your expenses, et cetera, and you can still hit a decent profit margin.
Now, one of the things that I think is nice about paid traffic is you don't really have to do too much management. I guess if you're working with a service like you sort of take care. You don't need to sort of go back and forth to qualify. Well, I guess you still do need to qualify the leads once they come through. But it's a lot. Would you say it's less intense than, I don't know, texting back and forth type of thing? Or is it actually, yeah, once they do submit, you do still have to go through quite a bit of qualifying, even though they had intent?
What I would generally say is there's so to be clear about one thing, you will get leads of all types. You will get leads that come in and then you call them and they say they never filled out a form, they don't know who you are. Like that stuff will happen, right? So there's like some level of qualification that always needs to happen. But usually, what a lot of companies find is sometimes they even have lead managers who are doing the lead qualification, and they find that with online leads like PPC leads, it's a good enough quality that that step isn't necessary, and they could even go directly to acquisitions. But there is one thing that's true, which is that they won't be the most qualifying that you'll have to do is based on the types of properties being submitted. making sure that those are properties that you're interested in. And some of that can be done automatically. Sometimes we ask like specific questions in the form. So as they're filling out the form, we might ask them how many acres it is. And then you could have a field in your CRM that says how many acres is it, and just automatically like put them all on a drip campaign that you don't actually call them if they're lower than the certain number of acres that you want or something like that. So there is some qualifying that needs to get done, but it's generally qualifying based on the property, not qualifying based on like going back and forth with the seller and are you really interested in selling? Are we really going to get it in the price range that we need to get it? Of course, there's always some of that. It's not like every single one that comes through that's a property that you want, you're going to just lock it up really easily. But you know, like they're generally, as long as it's the right type of property, you're looking at a much higher percentage of like quality conversations with people than a normal channel.
So let's talk a little bit about the mechanics of this. You
Mm-hmm.
know, we're not familiar with the world of page PPC in Google. Let's leave Facebook alone for now. What kind of what are they running? You know, we see Google ads on YouTube. We see Google ads on you know little banners, or we see Google ads on the search at the top, as you were mentioning. What kind of ads are those? The kind of ads we're running, and then how does this all work? What happens next? You know, if somebody clicked on it, where do they go? Walk us through what kind of ads are these and how does the flow work mechanically?
Yeah, and you're right that Google has a lot of different ad inventory that they do sell. Most of their revenue comes from their search ad inventory, which wouldn't include YouTube, um, other search engines that aren't Google that are affiliated with Google, um, banner ads. Not all of those you can run through the same ad platform, but where we're seeing the best results is the Google search ads, which are what show up when you search on Google. And anybody can go, as long as you search anything on Google that any advertiser is willing to pay money to show up on, then you'll generally find at least a couple ads at the top of the page there, as long as you don't have like an ad blocker on your browser or something like that. So what happens is I search on Google, I see all these options. So I'm thinking I really just need to sell my land, right? So I go onto Google and I search how to sell my land, and then comes up this ad that says you could sell your land to us for cash. We close in this amount of time, blah blah blah. And you're like, actually, that sounds like the perfect option for me, right? Click on the ad. Now you're on what's called a landing page, which is essentially the same thing as a website, but it's usually specifically designed just for the experience from the ad. Because what we probably want to be true on the landing page is it matches very closely what you saw in the ad. So if what was really attractive to me is that I can get cash and close fast, the landing page should also talk about getting cash and closing fast, right? So you have a landing page, and ideally, it's not one of those situations where you click on the ad, you get to the landing page, and you're like, oh, that's not what I want. Ideally, it matches really well, and then you're going to see on the landing page, usually there's two calls to action. The first call to action is a phone number. So oftentimes someone might just call directly in, and you'll find that's less common. Maybe 15% of leads will actually call the phone number. Much more common is there will be a form there where it says, fill out this form to get a cash offer on your land. Probably they fill out the first step and then they go through several steps after that to provide more and more information about the property. And the way we do it is the second they fill out that first step, we send the lead to you. And then we're going to ask them probably another 10 questions about their land. And your goal is often to call them while they're still on the website, still filling out the form. But we got their phone number on the first step. So you at least have a way to contact them.
And that's exactly what we do with the Pebble landing pages as well. It's a multi-step form. And once they
Mm-hmm.
enter in their, you know, basic information, we collect, I think, just phone, name, and email. We'll capture that immediately, and then in case that lead falls through, you have that initial lead information, and which a lot of times we do see people drop off on that second form because they don't want to submit as much and whatnot, but you may want to follow up. So that's great. So
Mm-hmm.
you're driving people to a landing page, and by the way, if you guys are listening, you're interested in landing pages, it is where Pebble started off as. So, we have landing pages for land investors. That's the REI land leads, but um, so coming back to the mechanics of things, you're running ads specifically. Is that on specific keywords? Um, and if it is specific keywords, how do let's look at your clients. How do they sort of differentiate from them from other people that are also doing things that you guys are all going after keywords? Are they sort of differentiating by adding certain areas, or how does that work? Let's say you have 20 of them, they're all wanting the same thing, to show up at the top. Somebody says, I want to sell my land. Are they being sort of more specific about the areas? Is that how they're differentiating?
Yeah, that's some of it. So you're right that most of the targeting starts with keywords. The reality is there's also thousands of other things, but the like thousands of other data points that Google has as part of its targeting, and they are used, but they're none of them are as impactful as the keyword targeting, which is your main filter for intent. So let's just say there are 100 companies all targeting the same keyword. It will be true that maybe one of them just targets Florida, the other one just targets Texas, another one targets the whole United States. So it's not going to be 100 that are targeting, one keyword for one seller in one place. But there's a maximum of 4 ads on the top of Google, and there could still be a lot of people targeting those keywords. So let's just say we have 20 people still targeting those keywords in those locations, and there's only 4 spots on Google. What happens? It's something called real-time bidding. It's an auction that happens where all of those 20 accounts, they put in their bid. What are they willing to pay for this click? Google doesn't tell you what the cost per click is. They basically say, you say to us what you're willing to pay per click, and then if it's enough, we'll give you clicks, and if it's not, then we won't. And what actually ends up happening is with the low bid, you'll get some clicks. We won't get that many, but they'll be cheap. And as you go higher and higher, you now get more volume, but it's also more expensive. It's the standard law of diminishing returns that exists there. So the highest bidder would show up at the top, second highest bidder, next, third highest bidder. And there's other things about like how much Google likes your ads. It's called quality score. Does it contribute positively to people's experience on the platform and stuff like that? But if we were to simplify it, a lot of it comes down to bidding. So if you think about that, how do you get really strategic, and why is it important to know what you're doing when it comes to PPC? Because if you think of, you asked me before what an ROI is, right? And I said it's the amount of money you get from the marketing over the amount of money you spend. Here's another formula that also tells you what your ROI is. You could say it's your revenue per click divided by your cost per click. That's ROI, right? So if you want to get a certain ROI, all you have to do is bid a fraction of what your revenue per click is going to be from that specific person. So you could say, I know if I get this click, there's going to be a 20% chance it turns into a lead. And then there's going to be a 5% chance it turns into a contract. And then I'm going to make $20,000, right? So you can reverse engineer, what is this worth to me? And that's how you bid. You bid to value. And if you always just bid a fraction of that, then you can hit those target returns. And the reality is it's different for every single search. If I search one thing versus another thing, it might change the likelihood that I am going to become that deal, or what the value of that deal will be. So that's kind of the name of the game. And that's sort of what we do. Our whole game is how do we predict if somebody searches on Google based on what they searched, as well as these tens of thousands of other data points that are behind them? How do we predict the likelihood that we're going to get revenue from this person and how much that revenue is going to be, and then always bid a fraction of it? And what you'll find is sometimes you'll know this click isn't that valuable and other people will buy it and they'll overpay for it. Just like could happen with property sometimes, right? Are you that upset when you lose out on a property to somebody who's paying double market value because they don't know what they're doing? Just let them do it. You're not really that interested, right? But then sometimes what happens is everybody else is just like looking to pay a certain amount for the click, but you know something about this person where you know this is a better lead, and they might not know that. And you're bidding more money in that circumstance, and you're winning those auctions, and then you're showing up at the top of the page. So those are kind of the basics of how it works. And when you're really good at PPC, that's kind of the direction you're going down usually.
Awesome. I guess the other question I wanted to leave you with here is, and you kind of mentioned it, and maybe you're going to summarize it here again, but if somebody were to run PPC, get involved with that, what are the key metrics they should be paying attention to?
I would say it's everything in a funnel, right? So if you think of what is your standard like life cycle marketing funnel, it's basically what's every step that somebody needs to go through to get to the end, right? So what's the first step? We put dollars in. Okay, that's our ad spend. What's the next step? Well, because of that, a certain number of people see the ads. Those are impressions. What's after impressions? Clicks. Some people that see it, they end up clicking. What's after clicks? Leads. Some of those who click end up producing leads. What's after leads? Probably opportunities. right? These are the actual qualified leads. What's after opportunities? Contracts, and then after contracts is deals, and after deals is revenue, right? And we just got all the way back to money, right? So if you care about your return on investment, those are the stages that somebody has to go through to get to that return on investment. So the way that I think all really qualified marketers work is they view it as a funnel, and they understand that basically all those metrics along the funnel are important, and the ratios between those metrics. If you think about it, most marketing metrics we use, like cost per click, what is it? It's just a ratio between two metrics in that funnel. Cost per deal, what is it? It's just a ratio between two metrics in that funnel. All these metrics we use are just ratios along there, and they're all just used with the principle of what we want to do is maximize the number of people getting from one stage of the funnel to the next. And if you do that for all the stages, then you produce great results.
Awesome. Uh, Brandon, I feel like you're a wealth of knowledge, and that's what you are supposed to be, and that's what you are. And so, our listeners here, if they do want to engage with you, I know I've mentioned it early on, and I didn't want to shy away from that. You do have a service out there, Brandon. How can people, reach out to you? What's the best way?
You can reach out on our website. That's probably the easiest way. So it's batemancollective.com. If you were to go to the website, what you'd find is if you scroll to the bottom, you'll see a form where we ask you, a couple questions, just kind of like the experience I'm describing here that we do for our clients. A couple questions about you and your business, and you can schedule a call with someone on my team, and that's kind of where we see, is it a good fit, is it not? You can ask all your questions, all of that.
Awesome. And so just out of curiosity, like I'm sure you work with your clients on an ongoing basis, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
some people might be coming to you thinking, well, Brandon, I'm just setting my stuff up and that's a one-time thing and I can just let it run. Why do I need to work with you on an ongoing basis? What sort of value do you provide on an ongoing basis?
Yeah, that's a good question. If anybody wants to see more about this, or even if you want to do it yourself, I recommend you check out a resource we have. It's called the PPC Toolkit. It's on our website. You can also go to our podcast where we talk a lot about this, and we talk about what kind of things need to get done on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly basis to have a PPC campaign run really well. Here's what you'll find. Here's kind of the very interesting thing about PPC and management fees and all that. For most companies, if you mathematically calculate it out, and if we had more time, I would love to do that, but you're just gonna have to trust me. If you mathematically calculate it out, usually with a management fee, you just have to get from the ads somewhere between 2 and 5% better results in order to completely cover the cost of the management fee. That's essentially your break even on management, right? So I guess my point here is the amount of time or money that you spend managing the account is the small part of the investment. The ad spend is the big part of the investment. And people don't go broke paying management fees or doing really good PPC management. They go broke when their ad spend doesn't work. That's the problem, right? And there's so much leverage. Yeah, there's so much leverage on that. Like you mentioned, you guys do landing pages. So like just to show like an example of how this is important, you could literally be looking at a management fee versus not a management fee, and someone could take the website from a 10% conversion rate to a 10.5% conversion rate. And then the extra leads you get from that 0.5% conversion rate could completely cover the cost of that extra thousand or several $1,000s a month that you're spending on that. So my approach with managing accounts has always been, we want to understand how it works. We want to deeply optimize it to the extent that we can. And if you really look, there's people who say, yeah, it doesn't take that much to run an account. That's like saying a business isn't that hard to run. It mostly runs itself. But that might be true for a little bit, but like the reality is, like business operations, it's a real big important thing. And it's also a high leverage thing, right? If you can improve your business operations by 5%, you could be making a lot more money that way. So that's what I would say. I think some people overcomplicate it, some people undercomplicate it, but my opinion with ad management has always been best in class is absolutely worth it. It's really hard for you to overpay for something like that or overexert your time on it.
Brandon, thanks for coming on the show here and sharing your knowledge and experience. And I hope you guys that are listening out there kind of opens up your mind to things like PPC, because again, it's one of those things that don't get talked a lot about, and we have people like Brandon who really specialize in that. So, anyways, reach out to Brandon if you guys have more questions. Brandon, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. Thanks for again knowledge bombing us with your information. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks again. Cheers. Before you stop this episode or hit the next episode, I want to personally thank you for listening to this episode of the Land Investing Business Secrets podcast by Pebble. If you found this helpful, we'd greatly appreciate any awesome reviews and ratings on whichever platform you are listening to this on. And if you have 2 minutes and wanted to step it up even more and help others, feel free to share this in other Facebook groups or pages or any communities, giving others a heads up of the Land Investing Business Secrets podcast or the specific episode that may help them on their land investing journey. Once again, thanks so much for listening, and catch you on our next episode.